Guys, this is Omer from MMOHut.com, and I'm doing another quick weekly recap of MMO news and announcements for the week ending January 29th, 2012. And as you can see from the video playing in the background, the first piece of news that we're going to be taking a look at this week has to do with Spirit Tales. And the news is that on January 23rd, Spirit Tales is taking closed beta applications. And for those of you that haven't heard of Spirit Tales, which I suspect is most of you, Spirit Tales is a 3D anime-inspired fantasy MMORPG being published by Quorum Game. And it's developed by X Legend, the same company best known for Eden Eternal as well as Grand Fantasia. I should also mention though that Spirit Tales is actually the exact same game as Glory Destiny Online, which some of you guys are already playing as the game is already in open beta, also by Quorum Game. Now, but Glory Destiny Online is technically the Malaysian/Singapore version of Spirit Tales, while Spirit Tales itself is supposed to be the North American and European version of the game. Now, since both Spirit Tales and Glory Destiny are published by Quorum Game, the same publisher, I think it's a bit silly to have two different versions of the same game on your service. I mean, one's called Spirit Tales, one's called Glory Destiny Online, but they're the same exact games. Spirit Tales, though, is supposed to be the North American/EU version. And what's really dumb is that the Singapore/Malaysian versions are already out in open beta, so a lot of people are actually playing that version rather than waiting for the North American/European version. There are no IP blocks in Glory Destiny Online, but there may be later on, we don't really know. Why can't they just have one server, one global server? It makes no sense to me. I mean, one server would just make a lot more sense in my opinion. Or at least one global service with different channels for different regions in the world. Next bit of news, guys, comes on January 24th, and it is from GPotato as well as BigPoint. Both companies are now partnering up together to bring some of BigPoint's games onto the GPotato portal. Basically, if you have a GPotato account, you can now log into Battlestar Galactica Online, Sea Fight, Skyrama, Dark Orbit, Deep Polis, and Farmerama on the GPotato portal without making a separate BigPoint account. Basically, you can use the same GPotato account to access those games. Next up, guys, on January 25th, Turbine announces a new expansion pack for the Lord of the Rings Online called Riders of Rohan, and it is scheduled to launch sometime in fall of 2012. It didn't specify exactly when, but it's expected to be twice as big as the Rise of Isengard expansion. This expansion will raise the game's level cap to 85, introduce new areas including the Plains of Rohan, Amunhen, and Fanghorn Forest. Those familiar with the Lord of the Rings franchise should recognize those areas. On top of the new areas and level cap, the expansion will also add brand new mounted combat as well as new quests, items, gear, and more. Next up, guys, a small update for Conquer Online. On January 25th, 2012, Conquer Online launched a new update today to its newest PvP zone, Gale Shallow. Gale Shallow will remove all PK penalties, allowing players to kill each other freely without earning any PK points. Basically, it's encouraging a lot of chaos and fun on that particular map. Also worth mentioning is the map grants players 3 times the chance of plundering items and gear from their enemies, making it one of the most interesting PvP areas in Conquer Online. Conquer Online is actually a fairly old game with not the best visuals, but it still remains fairly popular. Up next, on January 26th, the trading card game MMO Carte finally announced its closed beta date, and the closed beta testing begins on February 23rd. And if you didn't know, Carte is being published by Games Campus. Still no open beta date has been announced, but it's still good to know exactly when closed beta will be, and again, that is on February 23rd. Next up, on January 25th, is a small update for Project Blackout from SG Interactive, which simply adds a new map to the game called Machu Picchu. And as you probably guessed, the map is designed after the Incan ruins of the real world, and is specifically designed for deathmatch game modes. To celebrate the launch of the new map, players get 30% bonus experience until Wednesday, February 8th, so that's free experience if you do play Project Blackout. Next up, on January 26th, we get a small update for Rosh Online, which introduces several new maps to the game, and by a small update, I mean a fairly large update because the game's level cap is being raised to 65, up 10 levels from the previous cap of 55. Also included are 2 new maps. On top of that, the game's enchanting system has been improved, along with the introduction of new items in the game's premium shop. And as mentioned in the Rosh Online first look, Rosh Online is actually the same exact game as Karos Online. Moving right along, on January 26th, Luvinia Online adds, or at least announces, a wedding system for the game, so you can actually marry people in-game. This particular feature is set to launch after Valentine's Day, which I guess kind of makes sense, though we all know the people you're marrying in-game are obviously other dudes, because, you know, female avatar doesn't necessarily mean there's a female behind the screen. But seeing the game add a wedding system is not really that surprising because so many MMORPGs have in-game wedding systems now, and players mostly do it for the in-game perks. Up next, also on January 26th, lots of news on January 26th this week, but the news is that MicroVolts releases Nox Pow Wow update, which is MicroVolts is a third-person MMO shooter in case you haven't seen it before. The update adds a new map called Bitmap to MicroVolts, as well as 2 new outfits for the Nox character called Chief and Warrior. This isn't a particularly large update for MicroVolts, but it's an update nonetheless. The video in the background is actually the Nox Pow Wow update trailer video, so you can actually see some of the new stuff in the game. The next and last bit of news is from Rusty Hearts, and the news is that Rusty Hearts announced the Requiem update, which is the next major update for Rusty Hearts. Requiem will introduce a new storylines and lore as the game expands and raises its level cap. The update will introduce a new hub world called the Training Camp, a new raid dungeon designed for 8 players called the Altar, 4 new dungeons, new enemies, and over 200 new skills and new weapons. The video you're seeing in the background is actually the official Rusty Hearts Requiem trailer. So you can see some of the new stuff in game, though you can't really see that much, but they do release pretty cool trailers. And if you've never heard of or played Rusty Hearts before, it's actually very similar to Dungeon Fighter Online from Nexon, except with 3D-ish graphics. Well guys, that's it for MMO news, but as for games coming soon, we have one game to look at, and that is Mythos Global, the same game we looked at last week, and the game is beginning its open beta next week on February 2nd. At least I think next week is February 2nd, so yeah, it is, so I'm good to go. The game was once available through Frogster, but since they shut the game down, it is being relaunched as Mythos Global without any IP restrictions on February 2nd. And that's it, we have no real games that recently launched. We do have Glory Destiny Online, but as I mentioned earlier, it's the same game as Spirit Tales, which is also coming soon. So those two games are a bit confusing, but again, Glory Destiny Online is available. Though again, that is not technically the North American or European version, but you can still play it. Anyway guys, that's it for MMO news and announcement for the week ending January 29th, 2012. Now if you want to read about or learn more about any of the news mentioned in this video, simply head on over to MMOHut.com/news. And if you want to discuss anything in this video, simply head on over to MMOHut.com/forums. Anyway guys, this is Omer, signing off.